Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday, February 17th, 2026 Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board meeting. I don't see Craig, but he often comes in right about now, so we still have a quorum and we'll go ahead with the meeting. The agenda has not changed. I know nothing new to add to the agenda. You've received Jim's meeting notes. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Motion to accept. Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstention, motion carries. You have two sets of minutes that are January 20th and February 2nd. Does anyone have any corrections or additions? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. No correspondence. Welcome, Craig. A few short announcements. One, some of you may have picked up on it in the local newspapers, but the application has been signed for Grassmere. That has been pending before signature by me since 2022. Awaiting outside agency approvals. They have all come in, and so their site plan has been signed. There was a preliminary meeting, and it's their intent to begin the project as soon as they can get issued building permits, with a anticipated ending date of the second quarter of 2028. So it will be an ambitious build-out if they move in the direction that they would like to. There's also recently released, there was an RFP put out for the Linwood property that you've been reading about. It's available online should you wish to access that and look at it. Whatever happens there, one would assume that if it moved exactly the same use, they'd be back before us at some point in the future. And then Jim has an update on correspondence with Phyllis.
Yeah, so we're not going to talk about the project tonight since it's not on the agenda, but I did send you an email regarding villas and the letter we received from DEC about the outfall and the outlet from their proposed sewer package plant. And I just want to let you know, I did reach out to the attorney today. I did talk with him, and actually ended up talking with Christian as well from CPL. We decided that Christian will talk to their engineers and start to figure out how to move forward. Because this is a significant issue in the DEC letter that we received last week, so they have to figure out how they want to move forward. So we'll get the engineers talking, and they'll see what they can do to address that issue.
And then depending on how further they go, that may affect our next steps in terms of whether we continue to do seeker as we've been doing, and if it represents the need for a significant change, we might hold up and wait until we get more information. So we'll know better at the next meeting, hopefully.
One thing I noted in the email is we don't want to spin our wheels. We don't want to spend time talking about it and the applicant's money on the project if there's an issue that needs to be addressed. So they need to address that first before I think we go any further.
Okay. We have one new application this evening. That is of Andrew Samuels and Hannah Gottlieb Graham, 531 South Mill Road, site plan review and special use permit. Good evening. Who is here to present? Please come to the microphone and introduce yourselves.
So I'm Matt Town from Willingham Town Engineering. Christian Wassman is the project architect. So basically, this is it's about 14.5 acre property in the RA10 zoning district, 531 South Mill Road, Dutchess County Route 85. The lot is primarily vacant right now, but the previous owner did begin construction of the primary dwelling, which is close to the road. So there's a foundation that's already in that's going to be utilized for the new home. And the septic fill pad was also pretty much installed, as well as the driveway back to the primary dwelling.
We're just getting the plan.
Oh, sure.
Yellow pen.
I've got it. Great. Thank you. So the well's already been drilled, and it's just provides very significant amount of water, so we're good there. The back of the property,
This is the well.
yeah, there's the well. So we're proposing an accessory dwelling unit at the rear portion of the property, and that is close to the Landsman Kill borders the east side of the property. It's a New York State DEC Class C stream. There's a 100-foot conservation easement from the bank. All disturbance construction is staying completely outside of that easement. We're getting pretty close to it. The point is there's a waterfall in the stream that we're kind of capturing the views with that. That's the intention. So we've already submitted a letter from a structural engineer verifying that the existing foundation was good. So we looked at that. Just looking at what else. So the project complies with maximum allowable coverage. We do have to get a variance from the ZBA for the size of the accessory dwelling unit. We've already met with them. It was pretty positive. Public hearing is tomorrow, I believe. So that is in the works. The site it's staked out now. I think they're going to take a look.
I refreshed the flags. Most of the sticks from last summer were still in it, but I put some more yellow ribbons so it's more visible. I have photos also in case you want those. There's a pretty visible ledge actually, like almost like a little cliff. So we're above that cliff, which is it's also, I mean, the cliff itself is the 100-foot setback, and so we're 3 foot 9 inches further back from that, from the 100-foot setback. From the easement.
All right, so this parcel was created as a file map, and as such, there was a driveway shown on that map, which is where the existing driveway is. We're going to meet with the county DPW, though, just to make sure everything's good. We already discussed with him, we just can't get out there with this weather. So getting the driveway back, there's a driveway from basically the primary dwelling back to where the accessory dwelling is. There's some steep slopes there. The majority of it is about 10%. There's a driveway profile that was submitted. There is a section about 100 feet where it approaches 15%. It's 14.7. But we're proposing, so we'd like to keep it gravel for aesthetic purposes, but we're proposing the geocell stabilization. I provided cut sheets that's on the plan too. It kind of keeps things from washing away, keeps everything together. It's a pretty known practice. So there's more information in the civil plans. We're going to try to keep all the road adjacent ditches vegetated as much as possible, just to allow natural infiltration into the ground. The fire inspector has taken a look at the plan, and he was okay with it. So we've got email correspondence. I think that was included.
Was it the fire inspector or the fire department?
It was, I think it was the fire inspector. I'd have to look at who it came from. Where was I? So the primary structure is over 300 feet from the public right-of-way, 140 feet from the boundary line to the north. Most of the tree clearing was already done when the original home was built for the front portion. We did conduct a tree survey within 20 feet of the limits of disturbance, so we could wiggle it around if we needed to avoid any specimen trees. This plan and another plan does show tree removal. There's actually a lot of dead trees that are being removed. If you look, all the trees are labeled with their diameters. And
we're proposing new ones.
We're proposing some additional landscaping just to kind of buffer what's already there. So the ADU certainly won't be visible by anyone. It's about 1,300 feet from the public right of way. It's pretty well screened. So actually today I got sign off from OPRHP. So they issued a no adverse impact letter. So we're good from them. And then Health Department basically approved of the septic system has to be expanded a little bit for the primary and then the one for the accessory dwelling unit. So those are conceptually approved. I just got these letters today.
Normally we refer to OPRHP. I was wondering how you got that before we even saw it.
Oh, I submitted a Chris through the website, Chris, Cultural Resource
Normally it
Effects.
goes as a referral from the planning board, not directly from the applicant.
Okay. I thought I would do it because it's needed for the SWIP, Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan.
I understand.
Okay. So that concludes the presentation.
So a couple things just to go over some comments and a couple questions. One is that the area is generally considered historic. The village Union property nearby and several historic structures around there, so that is something that may come up in the discussion just in terms of the proposal itself. You did mention you've reached out to the county for the driveway permit, so we'll want to know the status of that when we get that done. We did see this actually previously at the planning board. I know they had reached out to the county then, so I don't know where the permit goes from one to the other, but we'll obviously want to see what the results are of your discussion with the county. You had mentioned before the ZBA for the variance, and as the board knows, we had discussed the variance referral at a previous meeting and asked the ZBA to hold off on making a decision until you had a better chance to look at this in more detail. Scenic Hudson does have an easement that runs right up against the edge of where the proposed ADU is. They have provided a letter stating that they have no objections to the project, but they have asked that the easement be staked out in the field. I think that a stakeout plan should be provided that shows how it'll be done. We want to make sure that they don't go into that easement area and create issues during construction. As required in the past and asked for again, we did get a structural sign off on the foundation for the principal structure. It's been sitting out there weathering for several years, so we just want to make sure that someone signed off on that is still being an acceptable foundation. And I do have an engineer sign off on that. We did want to note, and I'm sure you're aware, that there are restrictions on when you can remove trees in Dutchess County due to the long-eared bat, and you have acknowledged that restriction. I think that begins in March, if I'm not mistaken, in March. We have prepared a SWIP, and as we discussed, I think when we were looking at the referral, there are quite a few steep slopes. You mentioned the steep slope for the driveway. I will recommend that the planning board ask to have the planning board engineer involved in this review to take a look at those steep slopes and other proposals. It's a little bit beyond what I can do with the PD after the meeting. The swales that I looked at on the plans, you had mentioned the idea of infiltration swales and naturalizing those. I would love to see that happen. The details on the plans seem to show grassland swales and riprap, so if we can take that and naturalize it and make those infiltration basins to the extent feasible, I think that would be great. So just to see what can happen there, maybe have a discussion about that. What else? We talked about fire inspector review. Typically on something I think we would want the fire inspector and the fire department, the fire marshal for this area, to take a look at it. So we just need their letters stating whatever their sign-offs are. And one of the things related to that is I noticed your pull-off here, which I do believe you're going to need, is over 100 feet long. I was kind of curious.
I updated it. That was just a typo.
So it was longer than it needed to be.
Yeah, and I think it's updated on the other plans. This is
okay. I think that's fine.
Yeah.
It seemed excessively long, so it wasn't like it was short. But
you're right. Yeah.
Let's see. You have the existing well for the house right here. It kind of looks like it's kind of at the corner of the driveway back to the ADU and the driveway into the house. I think you may want to consider putting some boulders or something there, just to make sure a plow doesn't hit it, take it out in the winter, snow and things like that. We typically like to make sure wellheads are protected. It's something pretty significant. And then, again, we did look at this in the past, and I know the planning board had asked, because the mound system is out in front here near the road for a bit of landscaping down in this area. I don't see it on these plans, so it might be something you want to discuss again, a possibility. And then the other things I wanted to note, based on what I saw on the plans, is you will need to get a permit for the solar you're proposing on the roof in the town. You have guide rail in here, and I think we discussed this in the pre-con, that you will need a fence permit for the guide rail, based on the determination that the guide rail is considered a fence. The jurisdictional determination from DEC, and then you mentioned county health, the county driveway permit, and you've gone over. I think that covers it at the moment in terms of things that I was looking at. I think a lot of this will come back to review by Christian.
Okay. Planning board members, questions?
Where's the well for the accessory dwelling?
They're going to utilize the one up there, so they're going to run a water line.
Okay.
Because we have 30 gallons per minute, so we could run a spa up there.
And electricity as well
Yes,
from the house area.
yes, under the road.
Are there going to be units for heating and cooling outside of the structures?
We're gonna do everything with geothermal, so we have I think one well down at the accessory building and 2 wells at the main building. So, or actually, no, it's 4. Sorry, 4 geothermal wells here, and it's 2 over here. Yes, spaced to 20 feet apart, and the closed loop 400 feet.
What is the planned use of the accessory dwelling?
It's a more private bedroom, like it's so the couple the main house is more a social building where they can bring friends and family and entertain, and this is a small building with additional 2 bedrooms and a small kitchenette. So it's a tiny, separate building that could be inhabited without going to the big house, but it is used as one property, and they're also not intending any short-term rental. It's just for them. So that's their primary bedroom, and the others is for guests.
Is their primary bedroom is in the accessory dwelling?
Does this represent the relative size?
Yes. Yes. So this is the accessory building that faces the waterfall in this direction, and the river in this direction. You arrive from here, the kitchenette up here, and then call this the hexagon house. This lands on top of the T-shaped foundation, and has we arrive at this side. We arrive. There's 4 bedrooms facing this way, facing west towards sunset, and then there's a main living room, and then kitchen, and an additional bedroom up here. So it has 5 bedrooms, and this one has 2 bedrooms. And they're to scale, so these are all 8-inch units.
And that's built off of an embankment, the accessory?
Yes.
Kind of staged down.
Yes. Well, it goes with the hill. Like we're pretty much on bedrock,
Okay.
and the hill comes up, which gives this natural arrival point here. So there is an existing footpath that comes this way, and our driveway or our new road comes from here with the turnaround.
Maybe you can see the slope on the
Yeah. Are any of these spaces dedicated to garage space, or?
We tucked a little garage underneath the upper building. Like most likely this building is only being used with an ATV or they want to walk down there. So they really, I mean, we built the road that the fire truck can actually go down there, but it should not be in nature. It really feels very natural and they want to preserve that so that there's no like parking or anything down there. And the garage is, you have the floor plan, or I can show it also here. It's this loop here that goes into a garage on the outside of that T space. So
It's not facing.
yeah, you see it here.
Oh, I see.
For one car, and then the ATV, so bicycles.
And the space next to it is a pool?
Yeah, that's in the existing foundation. We're building a spa with a pool, like an indoor 14-foot by 12-foot pool. It's not for laps; it's more like a bigger jacuzzi, and then a steam room, a sauna, gym, plunge pool.
Plus the primary bedroom is in the accessory dwelling.
Yep.
So presumably they will take a car from time to time to it.
Every once in a while, yes, they will. Yeah. But the original, I mean, when we started walking the land, we were actually talking about, oh, we could just use this, but then, yeah, we know that we need to make like a road that is drivable for a fire truck. So.
And the accessory structure is just bedrooms, bathroom, and like a living
A
space?
little kitchenette, yes.
Little kitchenette.
Upstairs, yeah. So in that, what here looks like a pavilion, has like a kitchen facing the waterfall, and the built-in table, and then the roof deck is accessible. But, yeah. Actually, this still in the building was an addition that will house the bathrooms.
So since this is in the landmark district, we'll be requiring a phase 1A and 1B archaeology. It may have been done, I don't know, may have been done for the original house design. We should check into that, but it certainly was not done for the roadway or the accessory dwelling. And as that gets closer to the Lansing Hill, which is a very sensitive site, which is why St. Hudson has it, we'll especially want to have a concentration on archaeology in that area. Would you agree, Craig?
I do, yeah. That's a good point.
Anything else?
You mentioned that the accessory dwelling is close to the edge of the ledge. And do you anticipate any difficulties during construction? How will you keep debris from falling down that ledge?
We're set back 3 foot 9 inches from the actual ledge, which coincides with the setback, the conservation easement. So, yeah, those 3 foot 9, we're pretty sure that we can stay within it, because we don't do much excavation. We're pretty much on bedrock, so the footing will go directly on bedrock. It's a slab that we're pouring there, and then it naturally steps up to this side here. So,
Are there any field stone walls or other types of stone walls in any of the property there?
I mean, if we need to do landscaping for any footpath, it will be stone walls, just like
No, are there any existing?
No. I mean, this path is pretty prominent. But then when you come to here, they're rocks. One has to walk down on rocks. There's nothing landscaped around.
No, I'm just talking about any remnants of original fieldstone walls that might be demarcating property lines or anything like that.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
There is further down on the creek. There is what could be like an old, like a water. Turbine or something. There is some
There were
old...
any number of mills along the Lansing Hill, and all along there you can often find remnants of water wheels and other mill apparatus. So you might be ensuring that your archaeologists are looking for those remnants and that they're also looking for any above-ground stone formations that might be related to indigenous occupation. You'll have to ask them to specifically pay attention to that, because normally they would be just doing below-ground testing. But in this case, I think we'd be looking for, correct, Liz?
Yeah, just, some of the stone remnants might be a little obscure to just traditional stone walls. And so things that might look a little more disheveled and low or pile related, rather than just sort of structured walls, should also just be noted on the plan, and that way you can see how they're impacted in your plan.
Anyone else?
I just would love to see your models, if that's okay.
When this came before us, this property, about a year ago, 2 years ago?
It's been here twice.
Yeah, but the second time.
Thank
There
you.
was an issue with the septic system for, I think, 4 bedrooms and that. And here it was going up to how many? 6?
It's in 2 sections.
I think,
You're right here.
well, I think you had mentioned you have to expand the size of the
Yeah, so the issue is the septic system for the primary dwelling it's called a superfill system. It's enormous. And most of the fills have been brought in, but that is what's being proposed and what the health department has approved of.
Okay.
We just have to expand it a little bit.
But not in size, I think we used different pipes.
Well, we use a different type of system, so it could be potentially smaller, but it still does have to be expanded a little bit. So it's kind of a little bit both.
And then the small set we built down here and the reserve. So we don't pump the wastewater up here. It's good for the fresh water going down, but the septic is
Anyone else? Jim, do we have a draft procedural resolution?
draft procedural resolution for the board's consideration for the application by Ethan Samuels and Gottlieb Graham for site plan special use permit under Town Code Chapter 125 for construction of a principal residence, accessory dwelling unit, and associated elements at 531 South Mill Road within the RA10 zoning district. Asking the board to accept the application supporting documents is adequate for further review. Classifying the action as type 2 under secret, for which coordinated environmental quality review is not required. We will schedule the public hearing for the application for March 16th?
16th. That's what threw me off.
March 16th, no earlier than 6:05 p.m. We'll send this to the CAB, the WAC, and HAPAC for review, and need at least 2 planning board members to do a site visit.
I'll go. There'll be some Sharon. Is anyone else interested? Would you like to be notified when they schedule?
I'd like to,
Okay, so I want you to schedule, you'll just send it out to everybody else.
And just one correction, it's Andrew. That was my fault on the agenda there. I put Ethan.
Okay, may I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, thank you very much. Louise or Sharon will be in touch with you to schedule a site visit.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Under old business this evening, we have scheduled Rhinebeck Hotel Corky, 4 Grinnell Street, for the addition of parking spaces. This is amended site plan and special use permit. The applicant's engineers were unaware of the date of the meeting, and so they were thinking Monday, I guess, instead of Tuesday. And they have asked this be taken up again at the March 2nd meeting. So could I hear a motion to that?
So
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstention, motion carries. This evening, we have 2 public hearings. The first is 968 Route 308 LLC, wetlands permit, new primary street addition, renovations, hardscaping, in-ground spa. Good evening.
Good evening, I'm Jeff Larson. Jacob Martin. representing the owners.
You need to speak into the microphone
Sorry.
a bit better.
We're here representing the owners of this property on Route 308. We've been here once before. They have a cabin that was built in 1961, and then a arts and crafts house was added onto it, and we'd like to do one more addition. I believe you've been to the site to make a site visit.
Some people have, I think, okay.
Some of you have.
Yes, Sean and Sharon.
So I thought we made a couple tweaks to the site plan, which we told you we would be doing because we hadn't investigated the septic system yet. We have done that now. I think those of you who went to the site saw that. So we are going to need to move the tank and modify the leach field a little bit. So we've engaged Econic Engineering to do that, and they're going to submit that to the county shortly. And the owners also would like to add a spa at the end of the house off the cabin, sort of a jacuzzi. They have a family member who can use the therapy. And I think we're showing everything else that you requested at the last meeting, like the trenching to the propane tank. Jason, did I miss anything?
Yes, so these were revisions to our site plan and several other drawings in our set here that reflected your comments and questions that you had made. So we included the trenching. We had moved the spa. We had previously showed it on the lower part there in the south. But we moved it to the north also because that reduced the impact to tree removals. We're showing only 2 trees that are being removed, and that's not from the addition, that's actually from the septic system expansion. So we proposed this expansion area and the expansion of the existing septic system where previous test pits had been done, and Taconics reviewed this information and feel confident that we have a proposal here that will work. We have very great soils that drain well, so they're not expecting any issues with our proposed septic system. We aren't suggesting any new landscaping beyond landscaping to screen a new condenser for the new addition. The property is already landscaped. It already has a driveway, a sidewalk, and existing light landscaping. The area that we're building our new addition on is a grassed area and has a deck and the pergola that we're proposing to relocate on the rear of the house. Now we do have a new outdoor shower that will complement that new spa, and we are proposing a screen to that outdoor shower that will also screen the spa equipment. So originally we had put the spa equipment in the basement of the new addition, but we have, since we relocated the spa, we've put that behind a screening wall there. The existing AC units are already previously screened by some landscaping there. So we did receive a positive determination from the DC, which we shared with you. Now, since then, we have fully engaged with Taconic to do the septic system, and they're also working with the DEC. So my understanding is that the DEC determination happens at sort of the state level, the state office, which is maybe less familiar with the site and area. And the determination that we had didn't clarify as to which wetland they're referring to. Our assumption that it had been across the street was that wetland, but it could be potentially that the terming was Tabasco Lake. So Taconic's going to talk with the local office to determine exactly what they have determined as a positive jurisdictional. So it might be possible that that positive determination might be reversed, or if we need to do an application for the DEC, Taconic will fulfill that application, as well as our septic review with the Department of Health. There's no additional bedrooms, but we will have to go to the Department of Health because we are modifying the system. And within those plans for either one, we'll also include the silt fence plan to protect the Sebasco Lake during construction, so those will be included on Taconic's plan. So I think that as far as the site plan, that covers all the revisions that we did in response to previous comments. We did include on the actual plans and elevations the same, the plans reflect the same revisions that we just talked about, but we also included that dark sky compliant cut for the light fixture on the rear of the house as well.
Jim?
I think you covered everything. I only had a couple comments since last time. You talked about the cut sheet for the dark sky compliant lights, which is great. You talked about the septic system. I guess one of my questions, and obviously you work with the Department of Health to make the determinations. It looks like, are you reusing some of it, but not all of it? So you're kind of abandoning some of it and then extending other places? How exactly is that working?
Well, yes, we could expand the existing septic field. It's actually in good condition due to the soil condition. Ultimately, Taconic felt that it would not be that much more to just replace the existing expansion field in the same location, but they could make that determination as they develop the plans. But as it stands, the fields are in very good condition right now, so it does have the potential for being reused.
Like I said, Department of Health will do that one. The DEC pos deck, I would guess it's Sebasco Lake. I'd be surprised if it wasn't, so we'll have to see what they come back with on their declaration on that. And then the only other thing I noted, I think we had talked, maybe it's not necessary now based on the changes, but we talked about putting in silt fencing to make sure that we protected Sebasco Lake from any work that was being done.
I think you
Oh, did you mention that? I missed that.
Yes, with Taconic's plans for the septic, and if we do need to go for a DEC application, that would be included as those plans as well.
Sorry, I missed that.
And the screening of the equipment and everything will require a fence permit? Is that right?
Yeah.
So,
Yes, I didn't catch that there was a proposed screen around the equipment for the spa, so if you're going to do that, it probably requires a permit. We'd have to see a cut of that. Okay, maybe it's in there, I just missed it.
So even if that's as part of the outdoor shower, that would
if it's considered a fence, then you have to follow the fence regulations, so I'd encourage you at the same time to be looking at plantings and landscaping, because most of the fencing in Rhinebeck has to be somewhat transparent, which is defeating the purpose of why you want the screening there. But consider a combination of fencing and landscaping to achieve the goal you want. But look at the guidelines for that.
It's really almost attached to the house. It's attached to the house.
We've seen it before when people come in attaching something like that to screen.
Is there a spot in the plan?
Yeah, it's not clear on this plan.
Yeah, I was going to say, what about
It's on the site plan, but not on this plan.
I guess I didn't catch that was on there. So if we can get that on here, we'll show it in more detail to help explain. But you probably, because it's not part of the house, it's technically a fence attached to the house, it's a fence permit. So we'll submit that. And Brian and Norm look at that. So we just want to see a cut of what we want to do. So put it on the plans and then show us.
Okay.
So, you did site visits?
Oh, really?
Sharon, would you like to start?
James, go for a show?
Yes, we did the site visit. I was concerned initially about the view from the house to Sebasco Lake. The picture that I had seen looked like there's a lot of tall growth there, but when we got to the site visit, it's open. It's probably been open for many, many years. The house is 1950s.
Yeah, the cottage is 1961, and the large addition is 2004.
The large addition actually looks old. I mean, you can't see it. The color is perfect. It blends right in. Around the side, there was one of those,
Pergola? Pergola?
no, the heating thing. Or the generator on the east corner, on the east side, but it had, you could tell, even though there was snow on the ground, you could tell that in the summer it's all covered with garden flowers. So, I really had no concerns really about it. It's really a good plan.
John?
The only thing I would add is, where the purple is on the back of the house, just to remind everyone, it currently right now is a sunroom. So they're almost removing a big chunk of the house, they're just relocating it to the side to balance both sides of the house and to open it up to the sun. The sunroom basically removes the sun from the rest of the house, which we witnessed, because it just blocks it. And so basically where that pergola is going out, it's going to let the natural sun come up for the lake. It's a beautiful property, it's really well maintained. And then you notice it's almost like Adirondack in a lot of ways. In the sense of where you don't want a lot of landscaping, you almost let the natural land kind of be as is. So that pergola is removing and going to where that sunroom is. Basically, that sunroom, not exactly as is, just come around inside the house, we're using a ton of windows. The disturbances, seems quite minimal because it's already been disturbed. It's not like new disturbance in a lot of ways. It just makes sense what they're doing. I mean, it's a really beautiful piece of property. Put it in back. You can't really see your neighbors from there. There's a path on the left side of the house down to the lake where they can do kayak. During that site visit, I did mention something about storage potentially for the canoe and kayaks. Was that ever rectified?
Yeah, we're not proposing storage for
Yeah.
kayak. They do kayak and actually canoe on the property, but we're not proposing any storage.
And I think it's very quiet, hidden back in the woods. It's you really can't see it from anywhere except for maybe if you're out in the lake. And if you are out in the lake, I'd probably say the first 200 feet of lake is vegetation that you could not potentially even get a boat into. So it's very nice.
Planning board members? Questions, comments?
Well, what's the capacity of the spa? And is it going to get drained on a regular basis, or?
Well, it's just, they have a family member that will be using it for therapeutic reasons. So we were just thinking that one person in mind, so potentially 4 people, I would say.
It's just
But I'm not sure about it.
Is it seasonal or year-round?
I think I'm on it here, right?
Okay.
So I guess Craig was trying to get, is it going to be drained in winter?
Yeah, are you going to be pumping chlorinated water into the Tabasco Lake?
Yeah. I think it would be salt water.
And you said there's an outdoor shower. Is that plumbed into the septic system, or does that percolate through the ground?
There is an outdoor shower there now on the lake side, and there's a pump chamber sort of right next to it, so it must go into the septic. I mean, we'll put it into, we can put it into the septic.
Because that would be the other thing, is soap and stuff. It is pretty far away, but you don't want to get soap into the lake.
With rainwater going to the septic system, it could overwhelm the septic system.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we'll talk to them.
Anyone else? Is there anyone here from the public wishing to comment on this application? If not, we still have some loose ends.
We're waiting on DOH approval and DEC approval, as far as we stand.
I know we'd like it to be fast. What's your expectation? Would you like to go out 1 month, or do you think you need 2 months to have this done?
What we've told the owners is they weren't going to go into working drawings until we got an indication that this was approvable. And now that we have to wait for DEC and the county health department, I think it's fairly certain that we can work out a plan with the county health department. So we've got maybe 3 months of working drawings to do. So we can come back either next month or we can come back when we have the information.
Well, why don't we compromise and go out 2 months? Which gives you a little more time, but still gets you in pretty quickly. Does that work for you and your client?
Yes, I guess just a question, as far as getting approval, you need a full Department of Health and a full DEC approval, not just potential. We've been told about 3 to 6 months will be required for either one of those.
Sadly.
Yeah, we've only had, I think, one application where DEC took jurisdiction that's actually gone through the whole process with us, and it did end up making someone move their proposed accessory structure. The board can't approve a plan until we know exactly where things are going to be. So if the DEC comes back and says you have to move something or change something, like, we have to wait until we're confident that your plans are final. And I don't know what, I don't know how long that will take. But Department of Health, absolutely, we've always said that has to be signed off.
Yeah, I think the health department turnaround's a little better than it was 2 years ago. But the DEC, we had submitted it with the 90-day notice, and they sent us an autoresponder 10 minutes before the deadline. So we suspect nobody's actually looked at it. So that's why our engineers are going to talk to the local.
Well, I think you're making all the right moves by bringing in Taconic engineering. So 2 months work for you?
2 months, I think, would be good.
Does that sound fairly reasonable?
But, yeah, I mean, we're not going to get a permit until we do those two things, so it could be 3 months.
If we go out 2, and you can't make it.
Then we'll let you know.
Yeah, just like we did this evening when someone else told it. But it gives you the benefit of the doubt that if something miraculous happens or you're ready to get some other things before it's done as a schedule.
Okay, so 2 months it is, and we'll kick it out another month if we need.
Okay. Next to the motion, that would...
April 20th?
So moved?
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The second and last public hearing this evening is that of local land partners, Adele 523 Route 308 10-lot subdivision, major subdivision.
Good evening. My name is Craig Trevor with GPI, here on behalf of the Puzzle Local Land Partners for this project. I figured tonight with being a public hearing, I'll give just a kind of a brief overview, kind of a cliff note version of what I went through last time.
Sure.
And if there's questions, please let me know. But basically, as you guys already know, we've been working with the town for a few months now on the development of a conservation subdivision plan for the site, located on the north side of Route 308 and east of Pilgrim's Progress Road. And that, a conservation subdivision plan requires 2 major steps. The first one of those is the preparation of what's called a yield plan. And there's a couple plans that come into play in the development of that, but essentially what that is it's a plan that utilizes traditional subdivision regulations to determine with the constraints on the site, like wetlands and slopes, what would you be allowed to build on this site, design on this site to get to a total number of allowable lots utilizing typical standard conservation or subdivision regulations. So that's the purpose of the yield plan. That's what these first 3 plans represent. So the first plan, real quickly, that's just a simple slope map. The 2 different colors represent 2 different slope ranges. If you go to the next plan. This is the plan that shows the wetlands, streams, and associated buffers on the site. So those are the major constraints of the site that the yield plan looks at to make sure that you're not doing things like trying to show a lot that's in the middle of a wetland, and just doing things that you couldn't build, so that you're coming up with a realistic number of potential lots for a site. So the next slide, please. So this is what is the result of utilizing those constraints on those first 2 maps, and then bringing in the regulations that apply to a regular subdivision. For things like private roads, which we've got 2 of on this, and then the minimum lot sizes, minimum required road frontages, maximum road slopes. A little hard for probably anybody to see from where you are, but all that is on this plan. The rectangles pointing to a whole bunch of places along the road represent elevations along those to show that we're not exceeding any allowable slopes. And this also shows that the lot layout and configurations meets the lot sizes and the road frontage requirements as well, and we're keeping away from the required slopes for the yield subdivision plan. So what this plan shows us is that, including keeping the existing home that's on the site now as a new lot as part of the total, we would be allowed to have 11 lots on this site per traditional subdivision regulations. So then that is taken to go forward into the conservation subdivision plan process, and that has a bunch of plans with it, so I'll go through these quickly. Next plan, this is one we got to do probably.
Yeah, Mike, it doesn't like this plan, I'm sorry, this is your.
I do have the hard,
conservation.
the full-size print, if I would want to put that on the easel, or?
We'll just, I mean, this is, I mean, you had this laid out other.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
So basically, within the conservation subdivision process, the first two plans that are required are what are called a primary conservation map and a secondary conservation map. This, no, not that one, but the one that wasn't working is the primary one, and that one shows things like wetlands and trees and buffers, very similar to the yield. It shows slopes over 25%, agricultural lands, and then gets a little bit into the soils for prime soils, like farm quality soils, as well as hydric soils, which are essentially wetlands. The second map is what's called a secondary conservation map. And on this project, if you go to the next slide, please. So on this one, because of the size of the parcel and the extent of information that has to be shown in the secondary conservation map, we actually broke that into two because it would just be mud. If we didn't, you wouldn't be able to tell what you're looking at. So this first one is kind of like part A, and that one shows the slopes that are from 15 to 25%. It shows the existing horse trails, which are the red dashed lines on there. The yellow pointers. I brought you batteries this time too. So this one will take lanes down if you're not careful.
Yeah.
So the red dashed lines through here represent the existing horse trails that are on site now. The yellow is the 15 to 25% slopes. Rock walls are these kind of darker black lines that you see periodically. There weren't a lot, but there are a handful of them. And the purpose of showing these and subsequent maps later you'll see is that we worked out a plan that preserves these things and goes to design around them. And also part of this process, in all of those circles you're seeing on there, there's large, different size circles, some with pluses in them. Those represent all the trees on the site that are 6-inch diameter caliper and above. And we broke them down a little bit further so that it wasn't simply just 6 inches and that showed everything. We broke them into, read that again, but basically into size classification. 6-inch I think to 12, and I think we went 13 to 24, 24 to 36, and then the big ones like 15-inch type caliper trees. So that helped us, helped inform us in the development of the design to ensure that we work around everything, as able, but for sure make sure we're not doing anything like taking down a big 50-inch sycamore or anything like that. Yes, next, please. Okay, so now this plan is kind of key for the whole process. So this one shows the soils on the site, and again, I apologize, it's hard to read, but over here and over here, this gets into the description of just the typical soil classifications from the county maps, and then this piece over here gets into more information that's taken from the Lavella now, but used to be Chazen report that was prepared in 2006, that's referenced in your code. That is what is required to be part of the process for developing a conservation plan. And why that's crucial is because that report and that soil-related information is what tells you what the minimum lot sizes need to be based on soils, so that you're ensuring that you're allowing adequate space for septic systems, wells, separation from each other, those types of things, so that you're not trying to squish something into too small of an area that's never going to work. And with the soil types that we actually have 3 main soil types on the site. Back to where you zoomed into that was perfect. Sorry about that was good. So the 3 soil types on this site, we got B soils, C/D soils, and D soils. So it's just like school. The worst, you don't want to go down farther down the alphabet. So the D's and the C's and D's are not as good as B soils. And along with that, the worse the soils are, obviously, the bigger your lot size is going to have to be in order to allow adequate space for infiltration from the septic system, proper separation from distances for wells, things like that. So you can see on here, The recommended minimum lot size for a D soil for that shading report is 6.2 acres. The recommended minimum size for C/Ds is 3.5, and for Bs, the really good soils, you can go down to 1.9. So you've got a mixed bag of soil types on the site, and so this, a little bit to absorb, but this is a big part of what led to how we come up with the design that we came up on the site. We go to the next one, please. It's probably going to stay zoomed in on here, I guess.
Can you go back to that so we can understand where they are here? Thanks.
So basically, you've got what's labeled DWB and DWC. Those are and over here a little bit too, those are kind of your better soils. This big swath through here and through here are your less quality soils. And it makes sense that if you're overlay this on top of the wetlands map, you're going to see that they coincide pretty well.
And the minimum lot size for the B soils was what?
1.9.
I see. Thank you.
Okay. So this map is what's called a potential development area map. And this utilizes all of the information from those previous maps, combines it so you start backing yourself down into, from all that information, what am I left with on the site that's realistically developable? And that's what's represented in kind of this neon greenish yellow color. We left everything that showed itself, even though something like this here isn't going to be practical. We just left it on the map to show that technically is realistic. Go to the next one. From here to the next step, there's kind of a three-step process for 3 maps. It's just the sequence that Tom likes to see within the code of how you start laying additional information on top of that. It starts with the house locations being cited. That's what's represented in all the red rectangles. So you see how you can best fit the houses within the location on the site that are in those potential development areas. Next slide, please. From there, you lay in the roads and the driveways. In this case, for conservation subdivision, we switched from the private roads in the yield plan over to the shared driveways. The conservation lets you do that. The code allows it, and because it allows for a much lighter impact on the site, usually with the shared driveways. Narrower widths, you can bring 6 home sites off of a single common driveway entrance. So this side over here brings it into 6, which includes the existing house. On the other side over here, we're bringing in 1 here and 1 here for a total of 4 on that side. Next one, please. And this basically is just a composite of all that information together to become the conservation subdivision plan itself. So they did all. This is very similar to why we broke out the secondary constraint maps into 2, because it looks like this and it's a little bit harder to understand. And then I think just 1, 2 go. This one, after we laid out everything, got the roads in, got the driveways, got the houses, got the lot layout, worked with all the constraints, then we worked out the open space conservation areas. And what that is for this zone and for the conservation subdivision regulations, we're required to preserve 65% of the site in open space. So being a 102-acre site, we're a little over 65 acres of what you're seeing here in the blue. We laid this out in a way that keeps it as contiguous as possible for habitat, for animal movement, pattern requirements, things like that, so that what we're not doing is segmenting this into 10 different, tiny little pockets of open space. We're trying to keep it all as cohesive as it can be. And really the only things that are bisecting it are areas where we've got driveway crossings, which is really here, here, and through here. The rest of this stays contiguous. In fact, this whole site over here is all contiguous. And this site is another large parcel that for all intents and purposes, it will be contiguous because anyone's not going to stop at the driveway and say, darn, I wish I could get to the other side. Next one, please. Last map is basically just a clean version. I think Gretchen had a request that for the reasons I've explained on previous maps, it gets a little hard to follow. So this is just a stripped down version of that conservation subdivision plan with just lot lines, driveways, and the topo and the home sites, just to keep it clean. That's pretty much where we're at.
One of my first questions is, you're showing the area in blue that's conserved and then this other area around each of the houses. Does that mean that all of these areas will be cleared, or this is just the potential building area? I don't think we see areas that are proposed clearing.
No, those are just, basically, if it's not blue, it's potential development area, but it doesn't mean that everything gets cut down in those areas. We've worked, and you can see on here, that all those trees from that original map are all still there. That's why you're seeing things like these driveways sneaking around like that. In addition to grade requirements, like that's between the grades and the trees, we're avoiding, minimizing impacts and avoiding trees.
So you could be establishing tighter development areas for the houses, could you not?
That's why I wanted to make sure I stressed how important it was on that previous map with the soils from the chamber report that get into the recommended minimum lot sizes, because that's exactly what drove that layout that you're seeing on there. Is within the soil classifications and the 3 different soil zones that you're seeing on the site. And then once we started figuring out between topo, trees, wetlands, buffers, all those constraints that you've got to work with. And the client wants to be gentle on the site and wants to develop this in a conscientious manner. But once you start putting that all together, it kind of starts telling you what it wants to be. It's not an arbitrary, let's just try this and see if they'll go for it. So that's what drove it. So you can give this to another engineer, they might come up with a slightly different design. This is the way design works. But with the 65% requirement for open space, the slopes and the trees and everything else in play, you're going to end up with pretty close approximation to where we're at.
Yeah, there are a lot of ways we can go with this. We're still kind of in the beginning steps, but we've had a presentation on the proposal. We just kind of got the summary of it again. The first step in this, and of course the process, is the planning board determining if the yield plan is realistic and does not show potential house sites or streets in areas that would not ordinarily be permitted in conventional subdivisions. So before, we've got a lot of information here and rationale. It has the layout that's here, but one of the first things is determining if you think that the yield plan is reasonable and feasible in terms of the number of lots. And then obviously we can get into further discussions, of course, that process, the delineation of open space, the location of the house sites, the layout, design, that type of thing.
One thing I would point out real quick too, sorry, is that the yield plan, showed that we could technically have 11 lots, but we're actually only asking for 10. So we're not going for the maximum that we could have.
So like I said, I think there's a lot of discussion we had some of it last time, but I do think the first step is just, more recognition or discussion of where you think we land on the yield plan. And then we can go from there.
Has it been referred to CPL?
No, but I let him know it's coming his way. I don't know there's really reason for CPL to get involved until we get through the yield plan and then start discussing design.
Okay.
Because if something changes in your discussion of the yield plan, you could change your head, so I didn't want to bring that up quite yet.
Planning board members' comments. So we're beginning to talk about the yield plan. And is it realistic and does it show potential house sites? What are your feelings on this?
I'm a little bit confused because it's hard overlaying things like driveways on sites that have an abundance of like 25% slopes, where you're going to have to do something to get the driveway through there, some sort of a switchback or something like that. And if you're talking about it as potential, going at a right angle like that.
Do you want me to reply as we go?
Well, yeah, go ahead.
So on this side, like I mentioned, we've got two private access gates for the site, in both the yield plan and the conservation plan. This one utilizes the existing driveway location for the existing house, which is right here.
Yeah.
And so we come in through, and it's really not until we get to about here that anything really changes, other than it becoming more formalized once you've got it being a wider road for more home site.
Right.
And then through here, from the topo, you can see right in here that this is probably one of the steeper areas on this side of the site.
Understood.
So that's exactly why we going around both sides of it, that allows us to keep the room on both sides to basically traverse that slope in a way that doesn't just cut straight across that thing where you're gonna see something like the throughway where it's just a, you know, cavern with a mountain on both sides. That's exactly why it's laid out like that. And this one over here is, you know, a little more straightforward. That's just a straight shot coming into a, you know, cul-de-sac turnaround area. This is over here.
Yeah, but it does seem to blast right across a ridge. And I understand this is not what you're intending to build.
Right.
This is what could be built without the conservation subdivision.
Yeah, and within the perimeter, it gets further kind of confusing, but the code is definitely, it's fun to get through what the requirements for the yield are entirely different than the requirements for the conservation and the slopes that they want you to look at.
Right.
So it is a little bit, I can feel your
But this is, you're staying true to the native lot size for this zone.
Exactly.
Without the conservation.
Right, this one doesn't worry about that shades and map out, you know, the shade report and the septic system sizes. This one sticks to traditional subdivision regulations and those minimum lot sizes. Because the sole purpose of this is literally just to establish, can we have 8 lots, can we have 2 lots, can we have 20 lots, you know, based on traditional, you know, standard subdivision regulations.
So I was just gonna add, I think, you know, the boxes here show the slope at those locations, right? I think it's when we get to about 8%, we start getting concerned about slope. And you have, what, 2 areas in here, I think, where we get close. You have one that was 10 right here, this one's part here.
Yeah, 10 is the max for the code per this.
But the vast majority of this, I think, I was looking at, was more around the 5 to 6% range or even lower for a lot of this. So again, when we're discussing the yield plan, it's about feasibility of, you know, do you think it's realistic? You know, would there be required a lot of variances, for example, for it to happen, or could this kind of happen under the current code as it is, which is really, I think, the way we need to look at it, and not think with any variances or special engineering, you know, assurances to be able to get it done. So I'm not an engineer, but my take on the slopes is that, with the exception of a couple places in here, the slopes are generally within the range of where we'd be looking for these to stay. To be considered something that would get pushed to the point boiling.
I just wanted to say, has this been referred to?
Well, we were just talking about that earlier, and Jim had indicated that he thought, correctly, well, I'll let you speak for yourself. No, and he's got a reason.
Well, it hasn't yet, because I figured that the planning board should get to the point of deciding if they think that the yield plan is feasible and reasonable. If there's a consideration here where you don't think it's feasible or reasonable due to an engineering issue, then yeah, I think we would give that to Christian to take a look at. But we haven't discussed the feasibility of this yet at all, so I didn't want to get engineering involved until we at least got through the initial discussion, see where we landed. But certainly Christian can come in anytime. I talked to him today and told him, you know, it's becoming his way at some point.
Okay, but looking at each of these individual theoretical rectangles, we have to imagine that on that site there's going to be enough space for a driveway, house site, and a leach field that doesn't encroach on a steep slope, doesn't encroach on a wetland, and has permeable soil that's suitable for drainage and not too permeable.
Right.
I'm concerned, but when I think of a conservation subdivision, I think of the goal being to cluster the houses to create the greatest amount of undisturbed open space. And I mean, I'm not trying to say that you haven't worked hard at this, but they don't look clustered to me. You know,
But this is just the yield.
I know.
But I want to make sure that everybody understands, though, there is a very, very clear distinction that the cluster subdivision and a conservation subdivision are not the same in the slightest. We're not doing a cluster subdivision, we're doing a conservation subdivision.
I didn't say you were.
No, I'm just saying, I just want to make sure.
I used that term to describe what it looked like to me.
Yeah.
But clustering is, just as John Lyons on the council for the planning board, clustering is mentioned as a tool within the zoning laws discussion of conservation subdivision, just to be clear.
The marked horse trails, are those active horse trails? And if they are, who uses them?
They are active. What's the name of the?
Lansing. I'm going to speak that one.
Okay, great. Looking forward to hearing that.
But yes, the answer is they are.
And it looks from the subdivision plan as if those are going to be maintained or maybe slightly relocated to accommodate.
Yes, and I did forget to point that out when I got to that map. There are a few small portions just because of the reality of getting a house in and getting a driveway and things like that. Where if a trail was going to end up being like somebody's back bedroom window, or a driveway was kind of bisecting it, there are a couple locations where we rerouted it to maintain the continuity of the trail system. Or we're maintaining the majority of what's there already.
Yeah, and we did mention this in the pre-con, a couple pre-cons ago, that those were important to maintain. It is a legal issue to maintain that, obviously planning issue as well. But that was part of the discussion originally, is to consider those trails when we're placing houses and making changes. So. And I believe you have been working on an agreement, or you understand there will be an agreement or whatever's necessary.
Yeah,
all this
exactly. It's all part of the open space and everything we got figured as we get put up to that stage of the game.
So are there issues on the yield plan that seem clear?
Yes, it's a board decision, not my decision.
Yeah,
It's really for your discussion.
I would like to hear what CPL has to say about it, because like I said, it involves some, technical issues that I can't really get my mind around, so I'd like their advice on this.
Do you have specific questions that we can bring to Christian, what your concerns are?
Yeah, just the relationship of the buildability plan versus the existing constraints on the site, like slopes and wetlands. And I appreciate there's been a lot of work into this and a lot of carving and gerrymandering to get the right result. So don't mean to minimize what's been done.
So then, if we don't have a decision on that, where do we go from here?
Wouldn't an outside agency, like Department of Health and everyone else weigh in on all that?
I would think so. I know there's members of the public here, and we've received some letters in the last few days from interested parties, so in a little bit I'll be asking you to make comment. But I know there have been concerns raised about water, and that will be also something I would think we would be referring to CPL as well, because it's going to be a review that I can already feel is going to be important, that it be satisfied to the extent possible for the neighbors. So I think rather than continue to come to a decision tonight about that, I'd like to see it referred to CPL as we move forward now. John, are you comfortable with that?
Can you repeat it for me, please? I couldn't hear you.
That's okay. I was saying that we were discussing whether we continue to talk about is this realistic, or is this the appropriate time to bring it on to CPL microphone and stuff?
My recommendation would be to there's a lot involved here, and I think it would be a good step for the board to get a review and comment from CPL before making it.
I'm sorry, what's CPL?
They're the consulting engineers to the planning board.
And we refer things to them, they review the applicant's submission and comment back to the planning board. They are our consultant.
I have a couple just questions logistically. So I understand the yield plan is related to, it's a more mathematic composition around what can possibly, how many lots could be built on the property. If the yield plan, let's just say through consultants and our comfort level, we get to a point where like, this is what we feel comfortable with. But the conservation subdivision we feel very differently based on what we'd be comfortable through the conservation subdivision. What happens then? What happens then if we decided, hypothetical, we decided on a yield plan that then we were not comfortable with that density for a conservation subdivision? That's my question.
I believe it would be like any other subdivision. If someone proposes a certain number of lots and you don't think those lots are sustainable, then we would have a discussion about that. The code says one thing, but there's obviously other considerations, and it's this board's determination that would decide how we move forward.
So if a yield plan was accepted at a certain number, but then during the conservation subdivision you felt very different about a different number, they don't have to line up. It's really about it. Okay.
Is the operative word realistic?
I mean, yeah, I'm just trying to, because we're really looking at these as separate parts of the process, and I think for the public and for us, just to understand that they're different.
And also, you said we were looking at a conservation subdivision plan that includes 10 lots instead of the 11.
We'd be like by yield.
Yeah.
Correct.
And what's the nominal lot size?
It's on one of those maps. I did list it. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it varies tremendously because of the constraints on the site with the size of the wetlands and things.
Yeah.
So there you go. You got one site, one lot that's like 19 acres.
Oh, yeah.
And then you've got, I think the smallest one is like 5.5, I believe. So there's a pretty wide variety, and it's based, because of the fact that, like, the one right on the corner of the map you can see right now, that's, I think, one of the biggest ones.
Yeah,
So much of it is
so much
wetland.
wetland, yeah.
And then you have to meet the minimum areas to be able to put a septic and a well on there.
Okay.
Now, Jim, isn't it the case that in this district, a certain percentage of any parcel has to be deemed buildable, right? So if a large portion of that 5-acre parcel is not buildable, it should actually be larger. Do you understand what I'm saying?
That's included in the chart that we had there, that we're just looking at. That we show you the actual lot size, and we show you the developable area of within that lot size. Because yes, the code has I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but a certain percentage, I think it's 75%.
75% of 5 acres, which I think it comes out to a minimum of 3.75 acres of developable area in the RC plot. So all of these lots technically meet 3.75 requirements.
One thing to keep in mind too is all these maps past the first 3 that have been strictly with the yield are all related to the conservation subdivision plan, which technically is not supposed to take place until after the yield is approved. So we're kind of getting out over our skis on this a little bit, but we are asked to compare those.
We did ask for that. That was us asking, so that we have something to look at, kind of be able to compare the yield plan to what the applicant's desired layout is in the future, because otherwise we're looking at the yield plan without envisioning where they want it to go. So we did ask for them to take that additional step.
We did ask for that.
I asked for that.
You asked for that, yeah.
That
was what was intended by my question. When you're done with this, what's the average size that you end up with outside, because you've taken away 60%? 65% for conservation. So are all of these diminished by the same factor, or do we end up with 1.5-acre lots?
Oh, no, I see what you're saying. So it's actually, it's similar to how the lot sizes come to be in general, because for the wetlands, the layouts, you got so much of some portion of sites of lots that are taken up by the constrained lands. But we've worked out the lot lines and the layout so that by the time you back yourself into what's left of the whole developable area, it's code compliant. I don't know if I answered your question.
Okay. So you end up with lots that are all over 5?
Yes, there's no lots under 5 acres.
So your total lot area is on, your total lot area is on the left here.
Yeah.
And then this is the total developable lot area, which has to be a minimum of 3.75 to meet that requirement of 75% of the lot buildable.
Okay.
So on this one in here, it's 6.04 acres. You've got 4.31 acres of developable lot on that 6.4 that works. So it meets the map.
I have a question about the wells. It said that you did wells yields have been investigated, but we did receive a letter from a neighbor across the street whose 500-foot well goes dry twice a year.
Right.
So how is that going to affect 10 or 11 more wells that you're going to add?
So that also starts to go back to the lot size requirements for that Jason report that is utilized, referenced in the code and utilized to develop the layout and the lot sizes and locations, and keep in mind all the constraints. So it's better to have those spread out as opposed to concentrated in one area anyway. And so we would have those 10 different wells, and one of them's already existing, so it's part of the existing house. We really only talked about 9 new wells. Another part to that is we would end up doing, probably pick the lot that's closest, because the one letter that was received was for the parcel that's down here, the horse farm. And the proximity for that, from this corner of our property to this house, which aside from the existing one, which already has a well operating for years now, this would be the next closest one. And that distance just to our own property line is over 700 feet. So keeping everything spread out and further away is better than concentrating it and pushing it all closer to the road. The other part is the type of aquifers that you're going to be seeing in this area. There's 2 basic types. You've got your sandy type aquifers that function more or less like a sponge. You stick a straw on one side, it doesn't really matter where you put it because it's drawing consistently on the whole system. You're talking about rock type aquifers here. So you've got the fissures in the rocks and stuff like that. So there's you could quote all these straws can go in the ground and have 0 effect. I'm not saying that's the case, but I'm just saying that it's a different type of aquifer system that would be coming into play. So more likely we would drill a well for say this lot, and we can draw that. We can do it. We can draw down test on that and monitor the people's wells in proximity to see how that affects things. So the process that's required for the design and the approval of a subdivision in the first place, when you need wells and septic, kind of plays into what would help to alleviate those concerns in the long run anyway, as part of getting something in the ground and using the existing wells in other locations as monitoring wells to see what that effect does have.
Anything else? Is this an appropriate time to bring up the land trust issue, or should we wait until we know that this yield plan suffices?
Well, certainly has.
I know, but I mean, there are lots of issues that could be brought up now, and I want to know whether this is the appropriate time.
I have one more question that's related to the water and well issue. And as you stated, you have kind of a rocky substrate, and those tend to recover a little more quickly because water runs through the rock faster than it runs through a sandy substrate. Would that be the case?
It's a different system, so I'm not sure about the recovery rate comparison.
Right.
But you've got a more consistent yield in the sand one than you do in the rock. So,
right. Because what I wonder about is these rural wells is if you have a number of points where water is being subtracted, it's got to come from somewhere. If it's coming from elsewhere in the underground aquifer, that's one thing. But if it's being made up by water that's on the surface, there's a possibility of degrading the quality of that water. And I don't know if that's the kind of thing that we test when they do these drawdown tests. Do they measure the nitrates before and afterward, for instance? What kind of test is done on water quality?
Well, the water, getting a little out of my wheelhouse here, but the water testing is typically once you drill the well for a house that's ready to go for a CO, and you're going to do your typical testing. You have to periodically, you're supposed to do it once in a while too, to just check it. A drawdown test wouldn't include that, but that also, I know I'm sounding like a broken record here, but that goes back again to that Chazen report that gets into those minimum lot sizes for the soil, because that exact reason plays into providing an adequate sized lot so that you can put in a septic system that's appropriate to it and account for the soil types that you're trying to work into, gets the adequate separation from the wells. And that report also accounts for things like the tributary areas that are feeding those. So it's a pretty, that's why it's based in your code. It's a pretty important report to consider.
Okay. And this is in your application packet, the Chazen report?
You guys have it as part of your code. It's referenced in your code. We just pulled it out and approved it.
And it's specific for this site, or it's just kind of general across?
In general for your code, where you've got projects that need septic and wells.
Okay.
So there was, excuse me, there was discussion at the last meeting about the need for a conservation easement to be held by a land trust. Has any of that been pursued?
We haven't gotten into that yet because we're still trying to get through the yield plan. So it's a valid question and it's something that needs to be figured out, but I think that's a future conversation once we get to that point in the game where we know we've got something to figure out.
Okay. Well, sometimes people have preliminary conversations with such organizations to find out even the level of interest conceptually. I think that's why I always ask.
Okay.
John?
Melody, I have a question for Jim. What's the secret classification for this project?
It would be listed, I believe, as a subdivision. Yeah.
Okay. It hasn't been classified officially yet, has it?
Yeah, we would have done that as the procedure resolution last
Yeah, I think that was done the last meeting.
No, we did it last month under the procedure resolution, so we're good.
Look at that, I have my glasses.
Switch my negative to this versus this.
Yeah, we classified it as unlisted at the January 20th meeting.
Great, thank you.
Part of the procedure resolution.
Thank you.
So I was just saying, related to water, one of my questions would be, moving forward, we have discussed this with other applicants, is consideration of limiting, the use of water for landscaping, limiting lawns, looking at doing naturalized, yards and things like that, so we don't have lots of water being used for watering. That actually can create a significant draw. So if that's a possibility, I think those are some of the items we should start talking about, related to water, because I do think there are concerns here, neighbor's letter, we've heard in other parts of town related to water draws. So I think the more we can start looking at naturalizing things and not having to utilize the groundwater for that type of stuff, the better. So something to think about as we go through the process.
Okay, I think at this time I'll open it up for public comment, and then we can continue our discussion if we'd like to. So anyone interested in making any comments about this application, I'd welcome you to come to the microphone. State your name and address and make your comments.
Hey everybody, I think you know me. I'm Chris Travers. I'm on Route 308, 500. We're across the road from this. I think this is a great development concept. I'm very supportive of it. I understand the complexity and the amount of work that you as the board and the town is going to have to do to make something like this happen, and the work that the engineers and the team have put into it. This is the kind of thing that I think the town should have. I feel very comfortable with this being across the road from me. I have viewed the property. It's a great piece of property. It seems very complex to build, so a lot of engineering I'm sure is going to go into it. Compared to some of the alternatives of what could happen to here with this kind of property, I think this is an excellent plan. The people seem to be the team seems very sensitive to the conservation aspects of this, which we are concerned about. And we also feel that that's going to have minimum impact on traffic flow, etc. for us. So I know you're going to have a number of more meetings on this. I would just like to say that my wife and I, who are across the road from this, we're very supportive of this kind of plan. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if anybody has anything. Happy to answer any questions from the engineering group. We aren't that concerned about the water issue, but we're a little closer to Lantern Kill. Maybe that's a differentiator for us. I just want to say I'd like to see these kind of things in this town happen so that we can evolve this town, build the tax rolls, which are important to us as well, for the future enjoyment of the town. Hopefully, we can bring more young families into this town, fill our school with some more young kids. I think it would be a great thing to have this kind of development for that. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Stuart Findlay, and I'm here this evening. I'm representing the Landsman Kill Trail Association, and we use the horse trails that have been alluded to a couple of times. Some of you probably know that Landsman Kill has been an active horseback riding outdoor recreation operation in the town of Rhinebeck for 58 years now, I believe. And once or twice a year, we actually use town property for some of our events, and this gets approved by the board, et cetera, et cetera. I think that the willingness of the landowner to maintain these trails and provide access to it is obviously beneficial to us, but there are other benefits that I want to point out. One is this kind of outdoor use of the land, visible recreation is good for the rural nature of the town. Very typically, people driving by or walking on the roads, so they see us going through a field, they'll stop, and the kids want to pet the horses and all that sort of stuff. So they appreciate seeing this kind of traditional use of the land by this type of recreation. There's also a local economic benefit. Most of what you need to support a backyard horse comes locally. Your hay bales, your fence board, your farrier, the vet. For myself, for instance, is Rhinebeck Equine. It all comes locally. That supports, again, the kind of businesses that contribute to the rural nature of the town and maintain some of the traditions of the town. So the interest of the landowner in maintaining these trails, and I've studied this thing quite a long time. We're going to be able to dance around the property, so we're not driving, riding through somebody's backyard. We're going to be able to do that. We do it all the time when trees fall down and things like that. So we're going to be able to make that work with the cooperation of the landowner. And I'm not worried about that. And I'd like to see this kind of use and the cooperation of the landowner. Let us keep going. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jay Burgess. I'm joined by my wife Thea. We live at 25 Pilgrim's Progress Road, so we're directly across from a part of the parcel. I'd like to begin by commending the planning board and the applicant for the obvious time and effort and consideration that have gone into the planning documents to this stage. I feel very, very confident at the end of the process that a very fine project will result. One very slight item we might ask for consideration. Our house appears, for what's sketched out here, to be directly across the street from one of the combined driveways that would serve, I think it's right here. I understand the rationale, the benefits of the combined driveway. It would necessarily, by dealing with the traffic from 3 different households, have a little bit more traffic come through it. There's a bit of elevation there, kind of on the same level as our home, so there might be a possibility that in the evenings, headlights from the cars coming through would shine directly in our house. If that could be shifted very modestly toward 308, it could come out between our house at 25 and the neighbor at 17, and the lights not be directed at either house.
Some kind of light right there.
Yes, and I know, and it's abundantly clear from hearing it tonight, I know there's a lot that's gone into mapping exactly where everything is and balancing things, but if that shift could be considered, that would be very nice. And then last, we do value our well, and so we appreciate the attention that's going into maintaining the viability of the well for us and the existing homes. And I also would add that we really value the rural nature that in part is reflected by the horse trails that go through. So I'm glad to hear that in the proposal as well. So that's it. Thank you.
My name is Roger Smith. I've seen many of you before. I live at 437 Route 308, and we actually have a 7-stall barn, horse barn on our property, and while we don't own horses currently, having access to the trails is something that is obviously important. I've been volunteering my time to clear most of these trails over the last 3 or 4 years, so I know the property very well. And I would also echo what others have said, that the applicant has been very transparent and very engaging when it comes to his aspirations as a member of our neighborhood. He does want this to be a very acceptable project for the neighborhood, and he's expressed support for the horse trails, which I think is terrific. And in thinking of the world of real estate developers and how that can go one way or the other, he certainly has taken, I think, a very positive approach. The one concern that I've brought up with him that I wanted to share this evening is the horse trails will go over these new lots and these with new owners, and if there is not an easement as part of the subdivision, and I believe there may be a homeowners association, then each time property changes hands, it will require the organization to seek approval for passage of horses over the trails. And if any one landowner decides that they don't want the horse trails anymore, it's likely that at least some portions could be shut down completely. So the one request and hope that I would have is that there are easements as part of the subdivision so that the horse trails can persist even if future owners decide that they maybe don't like the horse trails. So thank you very much for your time this evening and for all the time and effort that you put into this organization. It's a terrific asset for the community and certainly helped our property as we were restoring it. So thank you.
Anyone else?
I can
refer to CPL.
Yep, I'll revert to CPL with the specific questions that were raised. Ask Chris to get back to us on that and continue the discussion of the yield plan and any other kind of preliminary questions you have.
So we will be continuing the public hearing, which is like about 1 month. That works? Okay. March 16th. So that's March 16th. May I have a motion? So moved. Motion and second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. That concludes the regular order of business for this evening. So unless there is something else, I could entertain a motion to adjourn? Oh, I'm sorry. It wasn't on my agenda.
Sorry, we didn't say that.
Okay, so the last thing, per our request of a couple of meetings ago, Jim has prepared a draft memorandum, which is request for consideration of planning-related efforts, and this it relates to the issues being raised along 9G. So Jim, you want to summarize it, and then we'll open it up for discussion?
Yeah, so really quickly, the memo, based on the discussions we had, asked me to just put together a quick request to the town board, asking them to continue to move forward on amending the code using a potential list of provisions that's been developed over time. And the other request would be to consider looking at undertaking a land use and transportation study focused on the 9G corridor, 90 to 99, potentially expanding that further based on any needs. Discuss kind of the background of how that came about, that we did do an assessment a couple of years ago, and that there have been concerns raised that we thought, as the board being the ones who constantly discuss this and hear about these issues, should bring it forward as a proactive discussion item for the town board to consider. So I just kind of put it in a memo, get your input on it. It doesn't have to come from me. I put it on letterhead from me. We could, I assume, put it on letterhead from the town, from the board's group.
I think it's an excellent memo. I think it should come from the board.
Anyone recommending any additions or modifications? John, do you have a chance to look at it?
I did, and I think it's a terrific memo. We also, Kim and I we had a meeting with Michael Barfield, who's the counsel to the town board, on something else, but we did talk to Mike about the fact that this request was coming. Oh, sorry.
That's all right, go ahead.
And I'll forward a copy of that. Jim copied me on this, and I'll send along a copy to Mike Barfield tomorrow and keep him warmed up and in the loop on this. But we told him that as far as Kim and I are concerned, that the suggestions that are made in this memo are excellent, and we urge the town board to consider them very seriously.
So Gretchen, would you be comfortable or okay putting this on town letterhead and sending them over? I can't do it.
So may I have a motion to forward this draft memo to the town board, planning board stationery as coming from the planning board? Motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention? Are we done?
No. Yes, thank you.
No? No. Well, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Thank you.